Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys, so I am well aware, I'm familiar with the Franklin expedition to discover the Northwest Passage, and and so I recognize the HMS Terror and Erebus as the two ships they took, and so I'm very excited that there's a history hit video about this stuff. Um, this video came out today, and so I'll wait to post my reaction to it until tomorrow. But I'm excited that History Hit is doing a video like this. All right, my name is Connor. If you are new, hello. I'm from Rhode Island, New England, USA, in that order. And I like to learn about things and watch YouTube and stuff. There's the door. If you're not ready to learn, you are in the wrong class. Home ec's down the hall. Let's do it.
If I had £1 for every time I've made a program or put social media about the Romans and building things, and I've had people replying, "What the Romans ever done for us?" I'd be a very wealthy man.
Yes.
I mean, that's
well, thank you.
I mean, that's
I'd be a wealthy man.
Yeah. You
even wealthy.
You came up with it. If they find the endurance, would that be as exciting for you as these other Erebus and Terror?
Absolutely. I mean, Shackleton was one of the great sort of polar navigators, and his story is incredibly exciting, especially the rescue of the crew from South Georgia and all that. And also, I think with Shackleton's ship, you would hopefully find information, because I mean they kept a lot of records there. Whereas with Erebus and Terror, people worried that the Inuit would have gone on board ship and they weren't interested in the paper at all. They were really interested in supplies and all that. Would have just thrown it all away. But then endurance would not have been interfered with because it's much deeper.
As someone who's travelled extensively in the polar regions, what advice do you have for us that are going down to the cold?
Take a jumper. The great thing now is that equipment is so lightweight and well made that you can move around very, very easily, and it's kind of, as long as you get the right gear, you'll be able to move far more easily than Shackleton and his men would have been at that time. Otherwise, I don't know. I've always been quite lucky when I've been to the Arctic or the Antarctic. I've never faced really, really severe weather, so I don't know the mental state that you would need to be in if you got stuck in the ice. Or if things went really, really wrong.
Who would you like to be stuck in the ice with for an Antarctic or an Arctic winter?
David Attenborough. Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't you like to be stuck in the ice, I should ask you first. You mentioned things like lead pipes. Are there any other sort of conspiracy theories what's not a conspiracy theories are wrong? Are there any other theories that you find quite attractive to explain exactly what went wrong?
What I would like to know more about is whether they communicated with the Inuit at any time. You're on board this ship, it's not moving anywhere, it's easy to get off the ship. Inuits must have passed by, although it was a bleak island. Why weren't they able to talk to them? There is one instance which the Inuit recount where they did, and they talked, and the Inuit gave a few of the men some fish, what they'd
seal
caught.
Meat.
And then that was the end of it. It was like, no one knew what else to say. And they just went off, and the Inuit went off in the other direction. What I would want to know is what happened if the two actually could have talked to each other.
There are stories, aren't there, just talking about sort of myths and things of people who might have survived, aren't there? There's sort of rumours that maybe...
Oh yes, the big ginger, the big Inuit,
Yes. Well, I don't know. I mean, I thought that Dan Simmons, was it, he wrote the book? Yeah, wrote the book Terror, that's right. I mean, he obviously sort of had, he made this legendary creature that eventually did for them all, a huge, monstrous polar bear, which others have said, well, that was, what he was describing there was a state of mind. And their mental state, and that's something which you can only speculate about. But I would imagine after that time there must have been some real desperation. And I would love to know what kind of state of mind they were in when they left the ship.
We ask everyone what's the moment of history they wish they could have witnessed, and would you like to have seen the last few months of Erebus and Terror's life?
I would like to have been in Antarctic when they got further south than anyone had been ever before. Because writing the book, I got to know some of these guys. They're very ordinary people going to sea, just sailors with families at home. And yet the small number of people, whatever it was, 120 of them, were the people who at one time had gone, the only ones who'd ever gone that far south. And I think that would have just been an amazing moment, especially after what they'd have gone through. And I'd like to have been there.
This guy seems really amazing, and it's interesting how he would find it equally as interesting. I don't want to put words in his mouth. It was something like that, to find the Endurance as it was to find the Erebus and Terror, because the thing that fascinated me so much with the Franklin expedition is how it ended, is the mystery around it, and how it seemed to just be a complete nightmare disaster, and finding the boats that the ships they use, Erebus and Terror, would fill in a lot of the holes. But he's saying how, I like how he says with the Endurance, which I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, is the ship that Shackleton took on his 1908, 09, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around then, expedition to Antarctica, his third, that ended in complete disaster, but they ended up not losing a single life, and it was a 2-year-long survival story. I seriously recommend anyone who hasn't heard about the Shackleton failed expedition. It's amazing. You will gain so much respect for Ernest Shackleton, and I would just say that. And he says how if you found that, it'd be interesting because it'd be completely untouched. All right, continue.
An amazing moment, especially after what they'd have gone through, and I'd like to have been there.
What luxury item would you take on a polar expedition?
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably take a very, very nice bottle of grappa.
Grappa, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, there we are, you see.
Yeah, well, man, I suppose a traveller like you, you've tasted them all. When did you feel most in danger during your career of travelling and exploring? Well,
there was a number of occasions, usually on light planes in storms. And there was one part of the journey we had to fly from North Greenland to the Svalbard, and we weren't really filming at that point. It was just we'd gone off course because we were supposed to land in Svalbard earlier. We couldn't find an airfield, so we spent the night in North Greenland, and then we flew, and the conditions got worse and worse, and the plane began to shake. And it's a small plane, and you feel every bump of it. And then suddenly we came out of the cloud, and the roaring, broiling ocean was about 50 feet below us. I mean, it was one of those moments where I thought, we're going to hit the water, there's no other way. And it just kept us under the cloud, which was actually thick fog. And we got to Svalbard safely, but I mean, it was the sort of conditions under which no one would ever normally fly. But when things happen like that, it seems all right when you set out. And it comes, something gets like that halfway through, you do feel in a terrifying likelihood of not getting anywhere. But I was always very optimistic, always kind of knew somehow that we'd get there.
I hate to ask this question because I think I've asked this one before, so I hate to think how many other people have. Where would you still like to go, having been to so many places?
I love the way you asked that question.
Well, for me, there's places like Costa Rica, which I'd like to go to, just simply because it sounds like it's a country that's got a very interesting and enlightened policy on the forest and looking after it and all that. I'd like to see how that all works out. Otherwise, Central Asia. I still really haven't been up into the mountains in the Stans and the Altai Mountains. I'd love to go there, where all the great sort of invasions of Europe seem to begin in that land up there in the mountains of Central Asia. Genghis Khan and everybody else. So I'd quite like to go see why they left.
History fans always love your kind of historically inspired comedy. Did you have ideas for sketches that never quite made it, but around other historical episodes?
Well, yeah, I mean, we did quite a lot for the life of Brian.
Oh, really?
Wasn't considered to be quite the right spirit to be included
The stuff that's on the cutting room floor was even naughtier.
No, it wasn't on the cutting room floor. No, it was just ideas when we were writing it. And we hadn't kind of homed in on what the Life of Brian was going to be really about, i.e. authoritarian religious movements and all that. So we had scenes like someone, I think Peter, ringing up to try and book a table for the Last Supper and having problems, you know, sort of 12 Thursday night, you must be joking. All right, when you can do 3 tables of 4 and put them close to each other. No, you've got to be on the same table. It was one of these ridiculous things. Oh, do you all right? Do you Monday night? And then all that. We've all got to be on the same side of the table. No, I can't do that. Health and safety. So that was a little thing that never got made.
If I had £1 for every time I've made a programme or put social media about the Romans and building things, and I've had people replying, what have the Romans ever done for us, I'd be a very wealthy man.
Yes.
I mean, that's
thank you.
I mean, that's
I'd be a wealthy man.
Yeah, you should be.
Wealthy.
You came up with it.
No, I can't claim that as Cleese and Chapman, but yeah, great thing.
Where do you like going in Britain? Where's your favourite historic location in Britain?
Well, favourite, the most beautiful place in Britain is the Western Isles of Scotland. I love going up there. Glencoe, we did a lot of filming. I used to know a wonderful climber there called Hamish McInnes. And then to be able to go from there as a springboard to the islands, that's just magnificent.
Interesting
scenery.
I spoke over him.
Just magnificent scenery.
If you could be a fly on the wall, you've mentioned you'd like to have been there when they went further south. Is there any other part, any part of history, not just exploration, not just high latitudes exploration, that you'd like to have been a fly on the wall for?
It would probably be another moment of exploration. I would think, you know, the first Westerner to see the Victoria Falls must have been pretty extraordinary. I think it was Livingstone, was it? I mean, it probably wasn't Livingstone, it was probably some guy saying, go and get some water for breakfast. And he'd gone and said, hey, you wouldn't believe it. Was it, what, you find some water? Did I find water? Half a mile of it, 600 feet dropping down. So that might have been seeing something like that for the first time.
Did I find
what
water?
era would you least like to visit in history with your time machine?
I can't think of any era I'd least like to visit. Probably London during the plague wouldn't have been ideal.
Good answer. Finally, you'll be glad to hear. What is, if you hadn't been comedian, author, broadcaster, national treasure, what would you have ended up doing?
I've probably been a journalist, actually. That's what I wanted to be. And those days there were lots of breaks as journalists, and I kind of, you know, I thought this is, it combined all the things that well, apart from the acting, I suppose, certainly the desire to travel and the love of writing, and particularly writing about foreign places. A foreign correspondent would have suited me fine.
Did you always love travel right from the beginning?
I wanted to travel, yes. I was always fascinated and curious about the world from when I was very, very young. All the books I read were attempted books which were set in abroad, especially the Biggles books and Hornblower, the naval stories and all that sort of thing. Any foreign name, because the foreign names and places like the Gobi Desert and the Equator and I don't know, all these sort of the Amazon River itself, you know, just I knew I'd never see them, so they grew in my imagination.
Has the meaning of travel changed in your lifetime? When you were young, you thought you'd never see these places.
Yeah.
Now, people expect to fly halfway around the world to a wedding and at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's become mass market, it's become popular. Even new generations of people in China travelling all over the world, so recently lifted out of poverty. Does it mean something different now? Is it less special or is it still magical?
I think it can be magical. It depends where you go and how you go. I think what's happened, because we can get to places very easily, what we've done is tend to make them into sort of places we find at home, only with 24-hour sort of sunshine or whatever, you know, I mean, with better weather. I still think the attraction of remote places on Earth where people haven't been still is an adventure, which is what I always liked about travel.
What an interesting answer. And
not knowing what was going to happen. Whereas the other side of it is accessibility, which is certainly hugely, hugely improved. But accessibility to what? You know, just somewhere that will be more comfortable than home. I always think that travel is about a complete change to your existence and your way you look at the world. It's not about comfort. A lot of it's about discomfort. And that's the only way you sort of find things. And people say to me, oh, you've been abroad, you've eaten that terrible food. Well, you know, it's not terrible food to the people who cook it. You know, it's actually probably better food than you'll get in a sort of takeaway here and all that. So I think that part, learning a little bit from the rest of the world, is what it's really all about, rather than saying that, you know, I can just use the rest of the world as a background for my own sort of, you know, time off.
Most depressing sentence in the world is when you go to a hotel and say, what's the Wi-Fi password?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, great, lovely.
If I had a pound...
What an amazing guy. And I would love, it would be amazing to sit down with this guy and ask him a million questions. But what an amazing answer to that last question.
Less special, or is it still a wedding and at the drop of a...
Where he says it's just like you're taking your home to another place that's a bit more comfortable, a different climate, rather than... And believe me, I'm not talking from experience. Not only am I nowhere... Very little people are anywhere near to where this guy, I'm sure, is in terms of exploration, but I'm a very introverted person in general. But the way he said that in the last question, how traveling has changed to experiencing something completely different and having to go through tough things to get there, to just kind of, you know, all right, where's the Wi-Fi kind of thing, or hotel, or take this nice big plane over there, and you just step in to a terminal, you take a cab to you drive to the airport, step in the terminal, another plane, you step off the plane, out of the terminal, and you're in another country. Maybe you go to a hotel or whatnot. Maybe you'll do one thing where you go and eat some strange food. But what an amazing answer and what an amazing video. I love that a lot. Awesome. Great video. Like I said, I know a good amount about Shackleton. Not in terms of like a historian about Shackleton, but in terms of just I've watched a few documentaries about him and his expeditions, and Amundsen and Scott, and Shackleton's big kind of disastrous but amazing survival story. Very interested in that. I often listen to it before bed, honestly. Great video. Awesome. See you next time.